Good morning. My name is Eliza Loucaidou, and I'm here on behalf of the Sewerage Board of Limassol Amathus to present to you the socioeconomic impact study, which we conducted at the end of, we started at the end of last year, 2012, and we finished early this year. Okay. This study is part of Work Package 3, Capitalization and Long-Lasting Effects, and it's very important as it provides information that is useful about the current state of play in the Med regions that are involved in the Homer project, and that identifies the benefits, obstacles, and what are the necessary measures for the further deployment of open data in these regions. The aims were twofold. Firstly, they were to address the impact of open data in these regions and to provide feedback that is useful for the subsequent project activities. The methodology was based on two axes. The first one was the literature review that was quite extensive, and the main objective was to identify common areas with the previous studies that were conducted in the past years and identify useful findings with the present study. And it also was based on primary research that was conducted by online surveys that gathered primary data that were useful for evaluating the impact of open data in the regions involved. Now, before moving on to the main body of the presentation, we wanted to mention a number of constraints that we faced during the implementation of the study. First, there was acceptance throughout the literature review that there is absence of robust quantitative data about the size, growth, and impacts of PSI-related activities. There is the inability to estimate the costs that are associated with opening up the data sets. Firstly, the data are hard to get, and also even if this is accomplished, one has to understand the different parameters that are unique in each region. In addition, there is a difficulty in calculating the cost for the Med region, even by stakeholders and public content holders themselves. So we relied, for the primary research exercise, we relied on the willingness of the stakeholders to participate in the survey on a voluntary basis. And I have to say a big thank you to all the Homer partners that made this possible with the extensive follow-up of all the stakeholders that we approached. And lastly, there was also the difficulty in separating the Med region from the rest of the country, since all the legal framework and data policies are mostly set on a national rather than a regional or a local level. The study covered the regions represented by the partners in the consortium. We firstly tried to set the context for the study. I will not expand on this too much because already Elsa and the rest of the speakers have spoken quite a lot about the EU policy context and the EC review. I just want to note here that in the framework of the Cyprus presidency, a progress report was produced, which highlighted the main elements about the amending proposal. As Elsa very wisely said, the Med region unfortunately has not progressed as much as some European countries, and this was becoming evident throughout the literature review that we conducted. However, there are many developments happening towards the aim and spirit of the PSI directive in individual regions, and this is reiterating the finding of the fragmentation that was also mentioned by the previous speakers. By looking at the individual Homer regions, we found that on both the demand and the supply side, the environment is the primary sector of interest in both data ownership and usage, and this is followed by tourism. And then one could say that agriculture, culture, and the energy sectors follow. Therefore, from the analysis of the secondary research that we did, I think we're able to identify three main groups. We have the first group of regions where not only the directive has been practically implemented, but the momentum of initiatives is increasing and pressing at national and regional levels. In the second group, we have regions which may not be leading the PSI themes, but are working towards the right direction of realizing open data deployment. And then we have, in the third group, territories which are lagging even more. They're even more behind the rest of the regions in practical terms, but nevertheless, through the Homer, they showed the commitment and willingness through the Homer partners to further enhance the enforcement of open data policies in these regions. As it has been mentioned, the open data portals are key to the development of the EU's digital infrastructure. What we found in the study was that there is a very large variability among the supply, take-up, and impact of open data portals. The numbers of the data sets can be very low, from 5, and the maximum we found was 6,200. So there's a huge difference in the type of data that are being made available. And this is why I suppose the MED program needs to harmonize all these inconsistencies across the MED. Of course, the impact of the portals is very important and indirect. It stimulates creativity, innovation, and it creates value. And by analyzing region by region the results, we saw that a start small approach is better suited rather than trying from the beginning, from zero, from nothing, to build something on national or supranational levels. So the early open government initiatives focused in 4 main areas: the cataloging sources of data, aggregating the data into a single platform. Then we have the encouragement of the users to develop non-traditional applications, and then mashing it up in ways more meaningful to consumers, so that, as Sophie said, not only ICT people and the average consumer can use it. So the main types of open data for commercial reuse are already well known. We have the geospatial, weather data, socioeconomic, legal, etc. But we have to say that the market interest is increasingly growing for other types of data as well, such as the digitized books and results from Homer. So hopefully even the federated portal from Homer will be further reused. In the study, we present all the open data portals that are available at EU level and other initiatives that are important towards this direction. And as it has been mentioned, at EU level, we have the 2 interlinked portals. Now, despite the increasing public interest in open data, there are still a number of significant obstacles that we have to overcome. And this can be grouped in 4 main areas. We have the legal barriers that are stemming from the regulatory framework. And in fact, from the survey where we asked the public content holders to identify these barriers, we have found that 6 in 10 respondents faced significant difficulties in this respect. We have the technical barriers, which are evident because of all the different formats of PSI that is available, and it's difficult to analyze and manipulate. We have the cultural barriers, especially in regions that are not the leading territories. And these barriers prohibit changing the status quo and preventing transition. And finally, we have the financial barriers, which are related to the investment costs on the one hand, that are related to data publishing, but also to the disruption of the existing charging models in some regions. So concerning the legal barriers, sometimes we find that even if the PSI directive is completely transposed officially, still there is a struggle between Freedom of Information Acts and the intellectual property rights, which support the public sector bodies in disseminating their open data. And then we have also the mosaic effect, whereby even if individual data sets ensure that the identity of the individual is not does not appear, then by combining different data sets together, this may become possible. However, citizens they do recognize the need to balance these privacy considerations with the benefits of collaboration. So we believe with the recommendations that we make that these legal barriers can be overcome. As I already mentioned, the technical barriers are also prohibit administrations from opening the data. We have found that in many occasions we have closed or unexploitable formats. They're not comparable across data sets. Maybe they're of unknown quality. And there is also the fear of embarrassment sometimes from that derives from publishing low-quality material. And also in regions that are still lagging behind in technology, there is the slow uptake of innovative technologies that needs to be overcome. Therefore, we believe that open data must be provided in raw format, and the public sector bodies must develop these analytic capabilities that are necessary for sharing their data. And this will lead to smarter government, which is desirable. Here we have some findings from the primary research, where the respondents themselves mentioned that technical barriers prevent them from publishing their data. As already mentioned, there is insufficient awareness among stakeholders of the value of data. There are two kinds of transitions that need to be overcome. The transition for government from political will to open up data, but also the transition for reusers themselves. And there's also the sheer fear of losing control over their data. But still, we believe that if the other barriers are removed, PSI holders are persuaded of the benefits, and this is the case. It comes even more evident that there is the will to change the culture. And finally, we have the financial impediments. There is a common misperception that there are resources that are necessary for publishing open data. The possibility of increased workload due to the inquiries. The disruption, as I said, of existing reuse markets and revenue models in some regions. But a lot of people who have conducted various studies in the past, and also through this study, it is affirmed that the data publishing need not be complicated or costly if the step-by-step approach is taken. And especially since the benefits, as we will see now, come to counterbalance the obstacles. Now, in a nutshell, the benefits which are linked to the provision of open data, we have the greater transparency of government decisions and accountability, civic engagement and participation, efficiency of public sector bodies, stimulation of the business innovation and entrepreneurship, reduction of transaction costs in accessing and using PSI, and the economic stimulus and large direct but also indirect economic benefits. Now, by opening up the data, we have better informed citizens, the increased ability to engage in political process, Citizens' choice is enhanced. Civic education is further encouraged. And we have several examples which support that from Italy. The transparency and monitoring of government activities is also very important, as now there is the increased ability to monitor the government activities, the creation of culture of accountability is encouraged. And it is interesting to note that in the survey among the stakeholders, more than 8 in 10 open data owners and more than 7 in 10 open data users believe that this is one of the main benefits of making the open data available. This is also supported by this movement Regards Citoyen in France. There is also the argument that by opening up data, we have increased usage of PSI by think tanks and other groups that are significant for making a more independent analysis of implications of government policies, and public debate is encouraged. And this is supported by the Energy.Public Data initiative of the Open Knowledge Foundation, which supports policymakers in formulating energy policy at the European level. We have also better services, as the improved knowledge leads to more informed decisions by consumers and citizens. In this way, public sector bodies are increased to public scrutiny, leading to increased accountability, and the service standards are improved as well as the costs are reduced. And this is also confirmed by the survey that we conducted, whereby the vast majority believes that the efficiency of the public sector is one of the main benefits, again, of making the open data available. Now, coming on to the economic benefits, even though there were difficulties in obtaining quantitative, reliable, and comparable data, and different methodologies are employed by different studies, economic indicators are being given on a Europe-wide basis, let alone on country level and regional level. However, we want to note here that, as the study by Vickery mentions, the PSI reuse can be in the range of 70 billion euros, and in direct benefits, and indirect benefits more than 100 billion, even though the indirect is a lot more difficult to quantify, again, because it can go down to different levels of reuse. There are also, in the studies that we gathered and we analyzed, we found that in France and Spain, the PSI market is estimated to be in the range of 1.6 billion euros, and that was in 2008 and 2011, respectively. Now, from the studies that we gathered, we assumed that there is a correlation between the market size of PSI and the GDP. We applied a growth of a rate of 7% on an annual basis. Then we applied it at the regional level, and we applied the GDP growth estimates, and therefore we have arrived at the calculation that the market for the Homer regions is at around 3.3 billion for 2013, and is likely to increase to 3.6 in 2014. Hopefully, if the recession is this compared with the EU PSI market in total, which is in the range of 40 billion. We can conclude that the Homer region makes up approximately 9% of the PSI market. Here we have an analysis by the region. We can see that the more advanced regions of Spain and Italy are well ahead of the other Homer regions and partners. So they will help us towards further improvement. And then, as I mentioned, we have a series of other very important indirect benefits, economic benefits, such as the encouragement of business and tourism. In fact, open data enables new startups and a new generation of small businesses which will be created. And this is also confirmed from the actual primary research that was conducted. Since the owners and the reusers themselves believe that the encouragement of business activity is main benefit again. This will enable the production of new products or services. And again, we have identified various examples from the studies that we analyzed, and even the development of cultural facilities, which again will stimulate tourism and business activity. Innovation, which is key in further promoting the Med region. From opening up data, the public is encouraged to use its own applications. This is also confirmed again from the research we conducted, where innovation is a main benefit. And again, an interesting example, again, is from the UK, which is leading these themes, where the UK current PSI market activity focused around a relatively small number of entrepreneurial businesses, which have already taken advance of these trends. A significant economic impact will be on employment, since the overall unemployment rate is increasing the last years, especially in the countries which are officially in recession. Therefore, as Luca mentioned, the creation of wealth and jobs will be easier and faster by opening up the data sets and making these available to the public. So from what has been so far presented, the study presents results in that the impact of the policies of open data can be large and multidimensional. There is a transformative effect possible on government and increased efficiency. We will have better informed citizens, improved services, and the creation of intelligence. And even though it is difficult to precisely quantify the economic impact, there are large direct but also indirect economic benefits. And the portals that can start from locally can play a catalytic role in fostering this innovation, growth, and employment, and can be replicated at various other levels and at the national level. I wanted to present this interesting finding here today, where we asked respondents whether PSI should be openly available, free of charge to all commercial and non-commercial users. And as you can see, the vast majority agrees with this argument. So again, we have the confirmation and the need and the desire to for the public sector bodies to open their data sets. So the measures that were recommended by open data owners and reusers focus around the areas where the impediments that were mentioned before take place. We have, since there are legal impediments, then the regulation of data privacy and legal issues is important for both groups of owners and reusers. The technical barriers that are very significant at the practical level need to be addressed through the advanced technology tools and the provision of support and training to the regional administrations. Then we have the communication campaigns, which are very important for raising awareness. And last but not least, we have the political commitment that was mostly mentioned by the users. So even if the various public sector bodies have shown on different the users are still stressing that, so it has to be even more, even stronger. So our overall recommendations from studying both all the literature review, previous studies conducted, and the primary research, we believe that starting local is a better suited approach with small-scale open data initiatives which can be further expanded, like we are doing now with Homer, whereby the federated portal will help in spreading this trend even more in the Mediterranean. There need to be policy guidelines increasing legal clarity. The infrastructure for processing open data is crucial so that the reusers can firstly get what they need, and then they can analyze it and reuse it. This is closely linked to the technical support and training that is needed on both the provision, but also on the side of those receiving the data. And then the dissemination strategies, which are very important for educating both the public for the potential benefits and all the opportunities that are there for them, and also for those that hold the public content. And last but not least, as I mentioned, the further enhancement of political commitment, but this time through practical demonstration, not just by effectively transposing the directive, which has already been done. And I want to end with a very positive note by showing you this chart where it says that from those that hold the data in the Homer regions, 76% are interested in taking advantage of the Homer results, receiving the action plan and the memorandum of understanding. So this is a practical measure and which demonstrates the demand, the need, and the actual opportunity that is there. So we have to grasp it and taking this a step further. So thank you for your attention.